What's up? It's Brian Rose from London Real. I'm here in Spitalfields Market, which is another one of Jack the Ripper's haunting grounds back in the day. We've had a crazy week at London Real, never a dull moment. I'm going to discuss the entire Joey Diaz situation, but before that, I want to talk about our guest this week. His name is Mr. Daniele Bolelli, and he is a martial artist, a philosopher. He wrote his first book, I think, at 22 years of age in Italy. It's now been translated into English and Russian. He's got a new book out that is kind of like making your own religion. He calls it like the MMA of religion. Take a little bit from here and take a little bit from there. And Daniele sat down with me when I was out in LA in his backyard. I'm loving these outdoor podcasts. And he was very honest about some things that have gone on in his life. Most notably, his wife died 2 years ago and left a very young daughter that he had to pretty much deal with when he was dealing with all sorts of other stuff. As far as I think he was trying to finish a book and trying to teach at university. And so the man's been through some adversity like that, and he's a legit martial artist as well. He gave me a DVD on leg locks, and he's no Husamar Palhares, but he can definitely probably hang close to him. So it was cool to get his impression and his thoughts about philosophy, and I think I talked more about some of my own philosophies, more so than any other London Real show. You know, when you have a trialogue, I end up trying to just shut up sometimes, and when it's one-on-one with people, I talk a bit more, and it was nice just to talk to Daniele about him. So I think you're really going to enjoy this hour and a half with him. He also is the creator of the Drunken Taoist podcast, which I really enjoy listening to. It's one of the top ones on philosophy, and I think you're going to enjoy that as well. So please subscribe to him there. And he interviews lots of different people. I think Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter, was one of the best ones that I liked. He was also in the movie, I think, the Bruce Lee story as well, and he had some commentary. One of his favorite things is he sticks the middle finger up at God, I think, and to certain things that he can't control in life. So he talks about that on the show, so I hope you enjoy it. We've had a bit of drama this week with Mr. Joey Coco Diaz, an actor and comedian in Los Angeles. Just to give you the full backstory, I wrote Joey an email, I think, a year ago, and when he was on Beauty and the Beast with Felicia Michaels, and I asked him if we could interview him. You know, he said he couldn't come to London because he doesn't have a passport. He's not allowed to travel because of his background or his time he spent in prison, I think. And so we were always in touch. And when we went out to the Rogan show in October of last year, I tried to hook up with Joey, but he was on the road. And so when I went out to LA last week, I found out like Sunday night or Monday that he was game. And to be honest, it made my week. I was like, wow, I can't wait to sit down with Joey and talk to him. And he had me meet him at this coffee shop way up in like Burbank or something. And so I drove, it was like a 5-hour round trip. I drove up to see him, and I set up in like this outdoor coffee shop with like a dirty power strip, and Lee Sayat rolled up, and I was like, hey Lee, and so I hung out with Lee for a while, and then Joey and I sat down for 2 hours and got a great interview with Joey. I mean, so the people that got a chance to watch it, some say it's one of the best ever, and I have to agree. It was just nice to get a one-on-one with Joey. Just to get really inside his head, as opposed to 3 or 4 people talking at the same time. It was good just to hear what was going on. So that was all well and good. I got back to the UK. I published the show on Tuesday. Everyone was loving it, retweeting it. Joey was, the Death Squad guys were all retweeting it, and the positive comments on YouTube, it was like 98% positive. And so I was really pleased with the show. And that was Tuesday. And then Wednesday came along, and as you know, we have a group of interns here at London Real, and I don't know all of them even specifically by name. I've got a guy who does PR coordination for me for free. Nobody gets paid to do anything around here because there, quite honestly, is no money really in podcasting, I think, unless you ramp it up. So they loved the show so much, and they're Joey Diaz fans, that like 8 or 9 of them started going apeshit on Twitter, and they were tweeting this and tweeting that and asking people for retweets. And then when people retweeted, they were saying, hey, you should come on the show. And they don't have authorization to invite people on London Real. That's my decision. But when you get people to volunteer for you, you kind of just you want to let them go a little crazy. Unfortunately, I couldn't monitor what they were doing on Twitter, because if you don't put the @LondonReal TV handle on there, then I can't see what you're doing. So any motherfucker can tweet anybody about anything. I can tweet Jay-Z, and you can tweet President Obama, and so they were all going crazy. So Joey tweeted me, I think Wednesday morning. It was like, you guys are tweeting too much, and I think I tweeted back as a joke. I was like, Joey, your tweets are gold, because I thought he was talking about my tweets, and all I was tweeting was quotes he did from the show, and like I normally do. You can see them. I didn't delete any of the tweets. They're all still up there. But by 5 p.m. London time, Joey had gone absolutely apeshit, and he was pissed off, and he didn't like all the tweets and the fact that we were begging people for retweets, or maybe even pimping people for the show. And I get it. I get it. Fair enough. And so I called all the interns and called everyone and said, just stop. And I sent out a message apologizing to Joey and said it would stop. And it did stop, as far as I know. I mean, hell, unless there's some troll out there pretending to be some kid. I mean, everyone was tweeting from their own personal Twitter accounts. So, it could have been anybody, and like I said, I know some of these guys' names, but I don't know everyone. So that happened, and but by then Joey was just gone, man. He was pissed off, and he just started going mad on Twitter. And I understand that he was angry. We did apologize and stopped all the tweets, but at that point he was just going crazy. And I don't think Twitter wars are a very intelligent way of expressing yourself. I stopped doing Twitter wars when I turned age 7. So quite honestly, I logged off, and I was just like, you know what? If all of this bile is going to be directed out there at interns or at people or at London Real, and if the Death Squad crew who were retweeting the show and who liked the show, I think, want to come after us, and I mean, like, Jesus, what am I going to do? Respond to each one and start calling people cocksuckers? No, I'm not going to do that. So it all went a bit crazy. Joey sent me a message finally on Facebook. He hadn't contacted me directly before, even though he had my email, and he said, take the show down. I asked him to reconsider because it's such a great show. But he was pretty adamant, lawsuits being threatened and things like that, and he could take the video down himself, which I don't know if he could, and quite honestly, I have attorneys too. But it was about midnight in London, and I was sitting at home, and I thought, if you don't want to be part of London Real, then why the hell would I put your video up with us? We're not TMZ. We don't force people. People love to be on our show, and they love to be promoted by us. So ultimately, I took the video down and sent peace to you, Joey, and complied with what he wanted to do. And that was it. I think there was some more residual hate and people being pissed off and all this stuff. But that's pretty much what happened. And at the end of the day, if we lose fans, DS fans or Death Squad fans or whatever, that's okay. I mean, it's really simple what we do here. It's London Real. We sit down with people and talk to them. That's our product. And if you enjoy that, then watch. And if you don't, then don't. It's really simple. So I don't take any of this stuff personally. I've been and seen a lot of shit in my life, and at 42, I can't say that this stuff's really bothered me very much. It's all pretty funny now that it all seems to be a tempest in a teacup at the end of the day, because like today, I don't think anyone knows. I think Joey's deleted all his tweets, so it's like it never happened. And if you weren't on Twitter, then you would have never known it happened. So that's it. I kind of feel bad it happened. I really genuinely liked Joey and went out of my way and was so proud of the work we did. And so when he starts accusing me of doing things in a bad way or trying to do this, all I'm trying to do is show the world who you are. And it turns out the world's not going to get to know you from London Real. And you know what? We're going to get over it. It was 3,000 views on YouTube out of just under 1 million. And it's one guest out of 100. So again, I don't have any anger. I think a lot of people are surprised by that. But I can only keep saying peace to you, Joey. I wish you the best in your career. I hope I didn't give you a heart attack with all that stuff and the tweets. And we did apologize. Oh yeah, I'll go. And so there, in my opinion, we apologize. Pulled the video. There's not much more I can say. You know how we feel. I send peace to you, and I really enjoyed Lee and meeting him. So there you go. That was the situation. Don't want to talk about it much more. Congratulations to the people that did see the video and listen to the audio. Like I said, I think it's a great interview. Maybe somebody downloaded and there's some copy out in cyberspace. But I'm done with the situation. It's too bad. I'm going to miss listening to the church, but it's going to be hard to listen to it anymore. But like I said, I send peace to all the people. And again, the apologies have been made, and in my opinion, the reparations were done. So not much more to say on this. Sorry if you had to be a part of all that nastiness. You know, some people feed off Twitter wars. Some people love that shit. And I don't like those people, and I don't like to engage in that kind of thing. I mean, if I wanted shock journalism, I could have done that with many of my guests and got these hot clips on YouTube that would hit 1 million views because I asked some guy this. You know, we don't do that. So I'm not about to start now. So there you go. Anyways, I apologize to Mr. Bolelli that this part has to be on your pre-roll, but I'm so glad I sat down with you, and now I give you martial artist and philosopher, Mr. Daniele Bolelli.
London Real, one of the coolest up-and-coming podcasts.
This is London Real, on location here in Los Angeles. This is apparently a co-broadcast, potentially, with the Drunken Taoist. I am here with Mr. Daniele Bolelli. As I said when I came in, buongiorno.
Buongiorno a te.
Daniele is an Italian writer, martial artist, and university professor. Mm-hmm. And you've been described as half stand-up comedian and half Zen master.
I like that.
You like that?
I don't remember who I paid to write that, but that's nice.
It's very good. I like that. Some of your books, your first book, I think, was On the Warrior's Path, which is philosophy, fighting, and martial arts mythology, mm-hmm. which I think you penned originally in Italian at 22?
Yeah, I wrote it in Italian, and it was kind of a much shorter version. It was like 8 chapters. Then my English sucks so bad that I couldn't really translate it into English for a long time.
Okay.
Eventually, maybe 7 years later, I got it done in the US with 3 extra chapters, and then they asked me a supersized version later on yet with 2 more chapters. So this is a book that started out thin and Italian and started growing and growing into these bigger English versions. And yeah, that was my first thing. It's kind of a trip to look at it now, but it's...
And now it's in Russian and some other languages.
That's right. It came out in Russia, yeah. It's actually coming back out in Italy now in the newer, thicker version. It's going to be out in May. So, yeah, that's been my very first thing.
That's cool. I want to ask you later how you write a book at 22 years old.
Well, I didn't have a girlfriend at that time, and, you know, extra time and energy to spare. And...
I think it's something cool about, you know, you being 22, and most 22-year-olds wouldn't think that they could write a book or have an opinion people would want to read. So that's a good start.
Right.
You know, you've got some other books, but I just want to touch on briefly. I'm only going to cover 3 in this intro, but one which came out I think a couple years ago, which is 50 Things You're Not Supposed to Know: Religion, which I think is some surprising, shocking, and little-known facts about the big 3 religions. There's probably more on top of that.
Yep.
And your latest book, which is coming out this week,
just came out.
It's called Create Your Own Religion, a how-to book without instructions. Love that title. Which I think is an open invitation to question all the values and beliefs and worldviews that humanity has held so far. Is that a reasonable summary of it?
Yeah, totally. It's basically the MMA approach to religion. It's, you know, the same way as in martial arts, in mixed martial arts started by taking the best of a bunch of different systems, test what works and what doesn't to create your own thing. Very Bruce Lee of the approach to MMA. My approach is I do the exact same thing with religions. Is I look in addressing all the big key philosophical questions that anybody have to figure out for their own lives. I look at what answers are already out there. I take a look at where those answers have led. In some cases, I recoil in horror going, ew, that didn't seem like a good experiment. Let's leave that. In other cases, I'm like, that's actually a great idea. I'll borrow it, mix it, create my own thing.
Okay. Do you limit yourself to the big 3 religions? No, that's too limiting, I guess.
I'm not particular. I mean, you can find stuff that's okay in the monotheistic religions, but those are the things that I really like the least. Okay. So I'm more in sync with some Taoist thinking, Buddhist thinking. I mean, I take whatever I can use, you know what I mean? And I don't care where it comes from as long as it's good and I like it and it helps my life. That's the only thing that matters.
Okay.
But generally speaking, I tend to find more in religions that are not faith-based. Faith-based religions tend to scare me and freak me out in more ways than one.
Okay. Can you quickly define the difference between a faith-based religion or an example
Sure.
of and a non-faith-based?
Faith-based religion are religions that are based on the idea that this one God revealed the truth to human beings, saying this is what you need to do, and because there is no evidence for it, you go on faith whether that's you should follow it or not.
Okay.
Religions that are not faith-based usually don't make a claim that this is the truth because some God told you so. They make a claim about this is the truth, test it out for yourself.
Okay.
You know?
Is Buddhism one of those?
Yeah, it's kind of like Buddhism as like Buddha had this parable of the raft that I thought was awesome. He said, he compared his teachings to a raft. He said, it's really only to take you from point A to point B. If you find another way to get to point B, good for you. Once you get to point B, kind of useless to drag the raft on your back for your entire life and worship it. That's not the point. The point is it's a mean to an end. End of story.
Okay.
Which is very open-minded.
Yeah.
I dig it. It's like it's just trying to help you solve a problem, and if you can find other ways to do so, by all means.
And there's no guilt feedback loop on those religions.
Exactly.
There's
And
no
so
you have to do it this way. Okay.
So in that sense, it's less. That's why I don't consider it faith-based, because it's something you can test out for yourself.
Okay.
You can test out those ideas not because Buddha said so. Are they good ideas or not? Do they work for you or not? Maybe some of them do, some of them don't.
Okay.
It's totally fine to do so. In monotheistic religions, there's no, at least officially, it's not a do-it-yourself thing. You can test it for yourself. You either believe it from A to Z, or you are committing some kind of sin.
Yeah, my way or the highway.
Yeah.
So your books always all have really cheeky titles, and I love that about it. So you're serious. This is kind of a how-to book to create your own religion. It's not a way of investigating religions. It actually is kind of.
It's both. I mean, it's investigating for the point of creating.
Okay.
So and by creating, I don't mean tomorrow you start the Church of Brian or something. Is creating a way of life.
Okay.
Some people may not like the word religion. Scratch it off, put philosophy. Same thing. It's how to live in this world. That's what it's about.
Okay, great. I can't wait to see that. And that's out, on Amazon right now?
Yep.
Bookstores?
Yep, just came out.
Okay.
Amazon bookstores are by now quickly disappearing, but whatever bookstores are left, yes.
Be there. I just want to round out a little bit more about you. You're originally from Milan, but you moved over here after high school, right?
Yep.
To Los Angeles. You graduated from UCLA, and you're also a graduate from Cardiff in Wales.
I'm actually still, it's a complicated story, but basically, because I started teaching right after getting my first master degree.
Okay. From here?
From here.
Okay.
And teaching with a master is a complicated proposition because, the kind of jobs you have available are more limited.
Okay. As opposed to with a PhD?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did a second master's. Part of the problem is I couldn't do a PhD because that would require an investment of time and energy that I just didn't have, because I had to put the time and energy into making money, supporting my wife at the time, doing all this other stuff. So I was like, fuck, what do I do? I need to, it would help me to have a PhD, but I really can't, because now I have all these classes lined up to teach, and it's part-time, but it's better than nothing. And then eventually I started hooking up with Cardiff University to do a PhD, where I would go there for a while, but then a lot of it would also be done through as a research thing, so I can do from here.
Okay.
I'm still in the process.
Okay.
So
that's close to home.
Yeah.
For people that don't know, Wales is right next to England.
Yeah,
and it's a shame I've never been to Wales, even though I've lived in
Which
England
is-
for 11 years.
If you throw a stone far enough, you can reach it from
Criminal.
London.
I mean, I can drive there in 3 hours.
Right.
And we just had a Welshman on the show, which is Howard Marks, an infamous international cannabis smuggler. So I hope he won't be upset with me. But that's a crazy coincidence.
Yeah. I dug it. I went there a few times. It was fun.
Yeah?
I like it.
The Welsh people have a good rap.
Yeah.
They seem to be pretty cool, down-to-earth people, that kind of thing. So, sorry, I was just saying, you moved here to LA, and now you teach in a lot of different departments. From what I understand, you teach everything from history to social sciences to American Indian studies to Asian American studies, world arts, cultures, at different places all over Southern California.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like sometimes when people
Like a
ask
mercenary.
me, so what kind of class do you have coming up now? I'm like, It's all the same. Because I mean, to me, it's like the specifics are different, right? Obviously, if you're talking about American Indian history, it's different than if you're talking about martial arts in movies, right?
Right.
But that's only the starting point. At the end, I end up talking about the same things.
Okay,
Because,
which is philosophy?
Yeah, it's life, right?
Okay, life,
It's the
okay.
big themes of life that makes life fun and interesting. At the end of the day, they're always the same. It's sex and a relationship with death and, all these gender roles or attitudes about nature. These are the topics that, to me, are key in any endeavor.
Okay.
And so the classes I teach, really, they are excuses to get to have fun with the big topics.
Okay.
So the examples are different, the specific expert knowledge is different, but the overarching themes don't really change.
Okay. It's interesting because I was driving over here and I was like, Jesus, Daniele has like all this schooling in philosophy, and it's something I never took much of. And then I was also thinking, okay, but I've been through a lot of things in my life, and a lot of successes and failures, and relationships and heartbreaks, and like all that stuff. So I guess by definition, am I a philosopher? And you must hang out with a ton of academics that are philosophy.
I hate them.
Yeah, I was about to say, you just answered my question. I mean, do you think sometimes that having a philosophical structure in place that you would get from a PhD can actually confine the way people look at their life?
I think it messes you up.
Really?
I think graduate school is, for the most, I'm sure there are exceptions, I don't want to generalize, but for the most part, you will fuck up your brain in several ways, and you will spend years trying to unlearn some of the stuff that's been put in your head. Because the reality of the game is that, a lot of graduate school is become super specialized, where you have to know one thing, you don't know about history in the great scheme of things or the lessons from it. You know what happened in that one street corner in 1615 between 6 p.m. and 6:30, and that's what your PhD is about, kind of thing.
Right.
So a lot of it, to me, is the exact opposite of the attitude I have about knowledge. My attitude is all knowledge serves life, is about making life more fun, more enjoyable. Their approach is stripping life from knowledge and focusing on knowledge for knowledge's sake, on little tiny specks of knowledge that are isolated from everything else.
Okay, nuances that make this philosopher different than this.
Just like, what the hell is the point?
Okay.
That to me doesn't speak to me.
Is it the difference between, say, physics and engineering? One is very practical and analytic, and one is used in life or used in the field?
There's certainly an element of that,
Okay.
and that some of it I think is just the people getting into these fields. Some people have a driving passion for life in all of its forms, and some people don't. And for whatever reason, they like to play weird, nerdy games, and that's what they are into, and that's it. And totally over my head, I don't get that stuff. And to me, it's a crime to turn what could and should be an awesome experience, such as going to college, which really is more than knowledge. To me, it's about a place where you find yourself, where you're tackling wisdom, where you're grappling with wisdom on a daily basis. And instead, that's because wisdom is a subjective concept that doesn't enter the picture. It's all about being objective, which means just giving you little pills of knowledge, data that can't be argued about, those are just facts. Unfortunately, that stuff is dumb memorization, it's not about turning it into anything that helps elevate the quality of anybody's life.
Okay.
So to me, it's better than ignorance. I'm not arguing, ignorance is great or something. Clearly, in that sense, going to college and being educated is better than nothing, but that's not much better.
Okay.
To me, that's not the point of the whole thing.
Okay. But you're still trying to get your PhD?
Yeah, but again, it's a mean to an end.
Okay.
If somebody tomorrow give me a piece of paper with a PhD on, I'm totally happy with, because it's not that I think that the process of getting a PhD is going to make me smarter or wiser.
Okay.
It's just, I need a stupid piece of paper to teach more classes so I can do the stuff I want to do.
Okay.
That's about it.
Do you encourage your students to go out there and do crazy things and take risks and do things that aren't part of the normal curriculum? I guess you can't tell them to live their life differently, but is that I've never seen one of your lectures, but I'm wondering if that's a theme throughout some of the things that you teach about. I know you've been told, I've seen you quoted as saying that you need to be involved in lots of different things in life in order to taste it correctly.
Yeah, because to me is I don't necessarily encourage people to do Jack because it's their life and they know what it is that they need. But if they come to me with an idea, or I'll gladly play along. And I mean, the thing with me is that a lot of the conversations I have with students, the stuff that I'm teaching is really an excuse for them to tell me about their life and where they are going with it, and where maybe that one idea that I brought up, how it applies to very real, concrete things in their day-to-day life.
Okay.
And that's where we jump in.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily have a preconceived plan of like everybody should try these things or do this stuff, because people are different, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll just kind of roll with whatever they feed me.
Okay. You know, I was watching some of your leg locks on YouTube. So people don't know, you know, Daniele is quite an accomplished martial artist. I'm actually going to read through a bit of some of your styles here. But it says you trained in several styles of martial arts, including Kung Fu, Senso. I don't know some of these names. Baguazhang?
Bagua, yeah.
Okay.
Xingyi. These are
Xingyi.
weird Chinese martial arts.
Okay.
Fun.
Including, which is going to give you street cred with the MMA fans, submission wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, judo, 4th degree black belt in the Kung Fu, which is the Senso. Right. You know, that makes you a unique philosophy instructor in that standpoint. I was just wondering if you could tell me a bit about your martial arts history, and then I got a question for you about Matt Hughes, but that's a different story.
Good.
But yeah, was that something important to you as a kid growing up? I mean, is Milan, are the martial arts big in Milan?
Yeah, it is big in Italy. I think because I was always this sensitive, more, if you go by yin and yang, I had much more of a yin personality, very sensitive, sweet, I avoided conflict, I nerdy, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I craved and needed the other side. You know, I needed to balance me out something that made me a little more pragmatic, a little more assertive, a little more all those qualities that I hadn't developed that much. And so to me, martial arts was really attractive in that sense of something to balance out my personality. And I started out with a very romanticized notion of martial art. You know, I wanted Master Yoda teaching me the way of the Force, basically. And then I realized that not quite the way it works. So I started out with a lot of Chinese martial arts, because in my mind, you know, in popular imagination, that's what martial arts are about, right? Asian Chinese and mysterious and all of that. And eventually I started drifting more towards self-defense based martial arts, and eventually even that started bugging me because I felt that there was no reality check, you know, because a lot of self-defense training is cooperative training.
Right, okay.
You never know what it means to deal with somebody with the adrenaline, with the pressure, with somebody who's really trying to take your head off and all of that. So then I started switching toward combat sports, because clearly, I mean, combat sports are also a simulation, because all the techniques that you'd actually really use in a fight, you can't use for safety reasons.
Right.
But at the same time, you do get to try timing, power, adrenaline, all those things do come into place. And the other guy who spent the last several years to become more effective at taking your head off is right there coming your way. So it forces you to deal with fear. So I love combat sports.
This is sports like boxing, wrestling, MMA, jiu-jitsu.
The whole game.
Okay.
All of them to me are brilliant. You know, there's something very real about it. Very raw, primal. And because you test yourself, you find less people who have this. I mean, a lot of traditional martial artists have this very dick attitude of just being all full of themselves and full of ego. A lot of it is a product of their training. It's because you build yourself up as this deadly machine, but you never really try it. You have this vested interest in keeping this sense that you're really so deadly. If you go out and compete on a regular basis, you get a sense of how good you are. You get a sense that there are a lot of people you can beat. You get a sense there are a lot of people who can beat you. It keeps things in perspective. You know, your ego can only grow so big because you have to bring it to the mat every time you train. And if you get your ass kicked, all your claims of being big and deadly turn out to be ridiculous. So you need to, you know, keep it real in that sense. And
yeah, most people who've never been around a mixed martial artist think that they're a bunch of, you know, goons. Or the problem is they see the boxing analogy, which is the trash talking stuff, which unfortunately has kind of precipitated in boxing. But as soon as you cross over into an MMA, I would argue wrestling or a jiu-jitsu area, where you're being humbled on a regular basis.
Yep.
You will meet the nicest people. Yeah, I mean, one of the guys I train with, who's a co-host sometimes on London Real, he's a Thai boxer, K1 fighter, and he has the gentlest handshake.
Right.
And I think there's a correlation, or an inverted correlation between handshake power and skills, because anybody trying to crank on your hand,
Right.
I don't know, there's some insecurity there.
Trying to prove something,
Yeah.
right?
But
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're totally right. When you test it and you do get humbled by reality, by the fact that as good as you are, there's always something better than you.
there's always someone to humble you.
Of course.
Yeah.
So it keeps things light. It keeps things in perspective.
Yeah.
And I like it. So I really dig. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of traditional martial art that I still like. I value the training. There are some awesome people training them who do not become these ego-driven assholes. But for my personality, for what I need the combat sports element more.
Okay.
If somebody who's already like this tough guy by nature, where maybe they do need to go do Tai Chi all day, because it mellows them out, they need it to round up their personality. The way my personality is, I need the combat sport aspect more so.
And you trained him, did you fight MMA?
Yeah, I did a couple of fights. I mean, that was already a few years ago in Italy, and even now Italy's sort of in the backwaters of MMA. Back then, even more so.
Must have been, yeah.
So it was, like calling it professional events is a big, being very optimistic, but I mean, it was fun. It was pro rules and everything.
So,
and
I mean, you're in a cage or a ring,
right,
and someone can take your head off.
And those are the rules, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's serious.
Yeah.
I mean, I trained a long time. I got a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I never fought MMA. It was always in the back of my mind. It's something I respected heavily and thought about doing, but I never did it.
Fucking scary.
Yeah?
Yeah, totally. Especially, I'm an extra wimp. I start from a place where I'm really behind the curve here in terms of fearlessness. And even before I did a pro fight, when I did smokers, even with the headgear, so you're not really gonna get hurt that bad, it was still scary.
Right.
Part of it is you're not really scared of getting hurt. I mean, that's part of it, but part of it is getting scared of being on a ring in front of a bunch of people and get physically dominated by another man who's gonna sit on you and pound your... It's an ego thing.
It's an ego thing?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you find yourself intentionally going to where the fear is?
Yeah.
And is that a credit to part of your philosophy background? Because a lot of people just would not recognize that they're staying away from the fear. They just, I mean, most people I see, and it frustrates the hell out of me, stay away from fear most of their lives and never recognize what they're doing by staying away from it.
It's controlling you. It's limiting you.
Yeah.
It's ultimately making you less of the person that you can be in every aspect of your life. In being a nicer parent, in relating to friends, in relationships.
Yeah.
Look at relationships. So many people are scared of their feelings, are scared of getting hurt. And so they put up this guard that ultimately may prevent you from getting hurt, but also prevent you from enjoying relationships to the fullest.
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand it, but to me, it's a child reaction. It's like, come on, are you really that afraid to be hurt? The fuck, you're gonna get hurt anyway. Life is gonna hurt you no matter what. Embrace it, and at that point, you can actually get all the good stuff out of it.
Right.
Because I mean, nobody likes getting hurt. It sucks. I get it. I understand it. And like the martial arts thing, every time I've done an MMA thing, I would swear to myself that it would be the last time ever, because it was so scary. No, before.
Before, okay.
Went up there, I don't want to do this, this sucks so bad, You quickly find out that the expression scare the shit out of you is not just metaphorical, because you spend the morning on the toilet, you're panicking, you're sweaty, you can't breathe, all of that. So it's like, who wants to feel that way? But then when you get through it, oh my God, it feels so good.
Yeah, the endorphin rush is just big.
Yeah, and you, despite feeling pure sheer terror, you stepped up anyway. And regardless of outcome, because you can't control outcome, right? You can only control it to some degree. Regardless of outcome, you went through something that scared the hell out of you. That's big. Then when other fears show up in your life, the muscle has been trained of dealing with fear.
And they're usually probably less significant than the big one.
Yep.
And you've done it before.
Yep.
I always do that. Whenever I have a fear, I always go back to the things that I've dealt with in the past. And I thought, okay, wait a second, I've done this before.
Exactly.
I've done this before. I've done this before. Even Joey Diaz has said that when he goes into an audition, and he's looking at a guy that's in an audition, he's like, wait a second, I used to go after the headliner on a Tuesday night at this crappy comedy club over and over again, and just sucked. And he's like, none of these people have gone through that kind of humiliation and pain.
Yep.
I can deal with this.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So do you still do that today? Do you still try to go to where the fear is in your own life? And
yeah, I mean, I think life in that sense, I'm really glad I did what I did martial art wise, because it prepared me for, because I mean my life hadn't really been that bad, you know, for the most part. I was extra sensitive as a person, so I would feel things a lot, but objectively speaking my life hadn't been that bad.
Okay.
By the time my life did get that bad, I'm really glad that I had that preparation through martial arts of dealing with fear, dealing with this lack of control, dealing with getting your ass kicked. And yet, you know, when in martial arts, when you get your ass kicked, you either decide to check out and never show up again,
which is very tempting.
Totally. Or if you keep coming, that says something about you, because you know, staying in a place where you have no hope of winning and staying it anyway, that to me translates to life more than any perfect armbar or left hook. You know, it's like, those are techniques, that's nice, but that kind of stuff will happen in life. When the shit hits the fan, things get really bad, and how do you deal with it at that moment when you have really no hope of a good outcome? You know, it's easy for us to get pumped up and have all this positive thinking stuff about, you know, I'm not gonna believe all this negative news, I'm gonna find a way to triumph in the end. Well, what when you can't? Well, when reality really kicks you in the balls and there's nothing you can do to quote-unquote win, then what? That ability to be able to stay in it, even when things are extremely rough, and to find little gems of enjoyment in the middle of the war situations, something powerful about that.
Okay.
You know? And so the last maybe 3 years of my life, I'm training and stuff, but because so much has happened, I haven't had a chance to really train as much as I used to, or as much as I would like to. A lot of the fear-based stuff has been more life throwing it my way, and not necessarily searching it.
Looking for it.
Right.
Do you think after like going into the cage and doing those things as a younger man that you get to where you are now, do you think there's a limited number of things that you can go out and do? You know, when you're a father, you're a teacher, to really confront your fears? I mean, you can't go into the Congo,
right?
You know, or do you think there is always some place where you can confront your fear?
I think there are so many fears out there that unless you are really amazing because you have conquered your fear across the board, and even if you do conquer them in one particular time, it's like sweeping the floor. Just because you've done it once doesn't mean it doesn't get dirty again. So that fear element is gonna creep up again, no matter how well you handled it before.
Yeah.
Once you have handled it already, it becomes easier to do it again, but it's by no means a guarantee.
Right. I like that analogy, sweeping the floor. So even if you go back and do something you've done before that's scary, it can still be scary.
Yeah.
It can be elements of that.
Probably less, because you have that experience, as you were saying, you know, you go back in your mind, it's like, I've done it already, it reassures you a little bit, but still, it doesn't mean that it's not scary at all.
Right, right. And some of the things you dealt with the last couple of years, your wife died. You were you would kind of been working on a position you were trying to get at a university that kind of fell through, and everything kind of came crashing down on you.
Yeah, I lost my house. My daughter was 19 months old when my wife died, so you know, dealing with a baby that now is completely and totally dependent on you 24/7. That's intense.
That's intense.
And I mean, in some ways, it helped me a lot, because then you don't have time to whine and be all commiserating yourself of how hard things are, because you have a damn baby that needs your love and attention and everything else. You can't be, ooh, poor me.
Yeah.
There's no time and energy for that. So in that sense, it actually helped me a lot. But on a practical level, it's hard, right? Because it's constant energy going out in another direction. So yeah, it has been intense.
Did you find yourself like thinking back to your martial arts training, or was it not that specific? Do you think it was just more of a feeling that you've been through some difficult things before, or were you ever?
I mean, I did mentally the connection, realizing that feeling of like, because honestly, it surprised me that I handle things better than I expected to.
Right.
And I think a lot of it, when I try to figure out why, because I've never been that much of a fearless person, I figured out a lot of it was probably the experience of testing myself through martial arts, but really was about dealing with fear and doing that over and over again, and realize over and over again that I don't really control much.
Okay.
Helps you relax a little bit.
Yeah, I guess that whole knowledge that you can't control things and dealing with that lack of control is probably a good analogy for life, which you can't control. I said this to my 9-year-old stepdaughter. She always wants to know like where we're gonna go and then how we're gonna get there and all this stuff. And like we were coming in from the airport yesterday, and I pulled her aside, and I was like, just see, here's an analogy in life. I was like, you might think you're in control, but you're actually never in control of anything. And her mother was laughing because I was getting all philosophical on her. I was like, so there's no point in you stressing about like how we're going to get from the airport to the thing, because you only have an illusion that you're in control.
Right.
But I don't think she took it on board.
Yeah, I mean, but ultimately it is what it is, right? Enjoy the ride while you can, because you have no idea about. I mean, ultimately, when we talk about fear, one of the biggest one is the fear of dying.
Yeah.
Because, we got all pissed off about minor stuff, and here you're talking about all of eternity, and you have no idea what the hell happens, or if anything happens, or everything that makes you just disappears. Like, talk about a scary thought. You know?
Yeah.
And when you, in a sense, you accept that as well, where you're like, fuck, there's nothing I can do to avoid it, and it's real. And so in that sense, when they tell you there is no monster hidden under your bed, it's okay. Yeah. The fact is there is the monster hidden under your bed, and shit is gonna get ugly at some point, one way or another.
I've heard you say this. So explain what you mean by that.
A lot of people have this. A lot of people I like who are trying to empower other human beings, they do so by painting reality in rosy terms, like things are not as bad as you make them be. You're psyching yourself out. It's gonna be okay. Right. If you follow these, you're gonna triumph and so on. My experience is nothing but, it's like the exact opposite. It's like, no, bad shit happens. You have no control. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Welcome to the world. Have fun there. It's like. Right. And that's real, but at the same time, just because all this ugliness does exist and will hurt you at some point or another, doesn't mean you can't enjoy the ride at the same time. People get bummed. People don't want to go to that place because then it depresses the hell out of them. Yeah. And it crushes them. So they have to be like, it's all for the best. There's meaning in everything. Things are gonna work out. If one door closes, another one opens. All this type of stuff. I mean, it's a good way of thinking, but to me personally feels like lying to oneself to psych yourself up, and it doesn't work for me. So I need to look at it in the rawest, ugliest terms, accept that that's how it is, and then I can move beyond that. And I feel that once I accept it, then I can enjoy the little moments, which ultimately is all you have, right? Is this moment right here, right now. It's all that exists. And hey, bring out the wine, let's party, let's have a good time.
Do you find if you have like a bad experience that you just try to be with the pain or be with the grief and just know that you probably need to go through that, and that, it's just part of living, as opposed to try to escape it? A lot of people will grab a drink or will go play a video game or try to transfer that out. But do you think you really ultimately have to deal with that pain sooner or later? And so
you deal with it. Now, some people get addicted to dealing with it, and they enjoy getting into the grief. Not enjoy literally, but they become so comfortable with it that it becomes the whipping yourself on a daily basis.
As a Martin Luther reference.
Right. And that's not healthy either.
Right. That's their pastime, is being the victim and being the drama person.
So I mean, it was weird because I had no time and energy when all the bad stuff happened. I would, play with my daughter all day, feed her, take care of her, change her diapers, do this stuff. At the same time, I had this deadline for a book I had to turn in 2 months later. So I would literally write it as I'm giving her milk. I would be thinking about the next sentence, and the second I would put her to bed, start cranking down and writing, and I would be, funny and lighthearted in the book when my life was anything but.
Okay.
And so that I would give myself like 10 minutes a day where I would crack, I would start crying, he would hit me hard, I would hurt, all of that. And a few minutes, it's like, okay, now there's shit to take care of.
Okay.
You're done, You went there, good for you. Now move on. And
That's quite a schedule to keep
yeah,
up.
I mean, I didn't literally do it like, okay, it's 9 p.m., it's my time, but the reality of the intensity of everything that was going on meant that I would probably allow myself small doses of it.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's healthy or not, but it's kind of what I had to do, and so it worked for the time being.
Yeah, I just keep thinking if I had like a major tragedy, if I could keep going on with, London Real, but I mean, that would probably be the one thing that would save me, having that regular thing. I mean, having those positive influences, and just to deal with something like that.
Yeah.
But my old martial arts instructor used to say, you learn a lot about yourself when you get into a fight. And I guess you probably learned a lot about yourself with that tragedy with your wife, because you probably found this strength you didn't know necessarily was there.
Yeah. And I hesitate to pat myself on the back too much, because, again, just because I was able to do that in some particular set of circumstances, I don't really have any illusion that it's automatically I could do the same thing in another set of circumstances.
Right.
So, and again, this is where the whole positive thinking, people get a little too infatuated with their success stories, and they're like, this work, I learned the secrets of life, now follow my 10 steps and you can do the same. And it's like, maybe, it's a good idea.
Right.
It's good to throw it out there, but it's a bit more complicated than that.
Plus your own mindset changes and can become more fragile over time. So yeah, maybe the 45-year-old, Daniele might deal very differently than the 42-year-old, or depending on the circumstances at the time,
Completely. There are those moments where you're literally standing on an edge, and one little push one way or another can change dramatically how you're going to react.
Yeah, I felt like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Even walking around sometimes, I felt like I'm just on the edge. And
Yep.
I just hope nobody does something to push me, and I can get home and turn the lights out.
Right.
So, I was going to ask you, I think it was UFC 158, the St. Pierre Diaz, they had an interview with Matt Hughes, who's retired now, and I think he's like, is he like the ambassador or something for the UFC? Yeah, I don't know. He's like kind of a middleman guy, but
I'm going to be saying bad things now, so...
Okay, well, anyways, you feel free. But they were interviewing him about things, and they asked him about, he's now retired, and if his fighting style changed over the years, and if he changed. And he said, he became very, very religious 5 or 6 years ago. We saw that on The Ultimate Fighter. I think he was giving out Bibles to people. And then he said, I watched my wife give birth to 2 different children, and I gained religion. And he said, I found that I was less inclined to go across the cage and rip my opponent's arm off and beat him with it. And he said, as each one of these moments happened, I just felt that innate aggression was not there anymore. Now, he loved the competition, and he loved to win, but that kind of, innate aggression, he said, he quite honestly was honest about the fact that it had waned over the years. And I was just curious if you have ever found that, getting older, becoming a father, if you felt maybe even your interest in UFC or your interest in some of these blood sports or even your own fighting has changed.
I never had that. That, by the way, is the first ever Matt Hughes quote that I like.
Okay.
So that's
You don't like Matt?
No.
Okay. Why don't you like him?
I mean, I don't know him personally, so who the hell knows? But,
Okay.
it's like from... As much as you can tell from TV, his attitude, his book, I read his book,
Oh, you read his book.
I remember I read Tito Ortiz's book, and Tito,
Okay.
was one of these guys who carry himself all like this badass, had this really bad attitude. When you read him, you really get an appreciation for him.
Right.
Because his whole life story is so much more complex than the image he presents that you actually like the guy.
Yeah, when he was on
something,
Rogan, I really liked him
Yeah.
because I didn't realize he was on crystal meth before he started, and I didn't realize the hard because you get used to the Tito who speaks in the third person.
Exactly.
Jesus.
And then you realize that the guy actually has a lot of heart,
Right.
and there's a lot of sensitivity there, and there's it becomes sympathetic.
Right.
Hughes could be the same thing, that he has this attitude, but then behind it, and after I read his book, I was like, Jesus, he's worse than his attitude. It's like his attitude came across 10 times more of this big bully who just thrives on crushing people and is basically just a flat-out dick.
Okay.
And I'm sure, well, no, actually, I'm not sure. Maybe I hope he's a nicer person than, the book make him seem to be, or that he maybe doesn't come across on TV so well, because again, I never met the guy, so I don't really know, right?
Or maybe he wrote that book.
Right.
Sometimes when you write your book at the end of the career, maybe you write it as a projection of who you want to be.
Yeah. Well, that's scary. If that's who you want to be, that's not saying
scary.
good things about you. But, it's like, again, how people you see through a book or through TV, how much do you really know? So I leave open the possibility that maybe I would meet the guy and not only change my mind, because otherwise it beats me on the head, but also change my mind because maybe he's a much nicer person than seems to. But yeah, based on the public persona, I'm not a fan, to say the least.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
I like, he's a tough guy. I mean, his match with like Frank Trigg when he got kicked in the balls and he managed to turn it around. That was one of these heroic moments that you watch that and you're like, that man is made of iron, has heart, has willpower. So I respect that about him.
He said that was one of his favorite fights.
Yeah, and I mean
because he saw adversity. I mean, and he said that those are the favorite fights that he likes to watch.
Right.
And it's the same with me.
Yeah.
They're like Shakespearean dramas playing out, where you see a fighter tested. Ronda Rousey, she was really tested on that fight. So
no, that's where, and in fact, for me, I do not like Matt Hughes. I have mad respect watching that fight. Right. So that says something. It's easy when you like somebody, you want to see them in a good light. When I saw that, despite not particularly liking him, I was like, all the respect to the guy, because that's amazing what he did there. So
okay. And what about you? With as you've gotten older, procreation, that kind of thing. Did that change the way you looked at martial arts or not?
I never had that aggression to begin with.
Okay.
I came from such a different place that even the way I fight, I'm always looking for submissions, because I honestly don't really like hurting people.
Okay.
So I think some of these guys get off on pummeling somebody else. All Matt Hughes style was just get on top and elbow him to open him up, and it's a fight, so it is what it is, right? You're not supposed to be nice during a fight.
Yes.
But it takes a certain personality to be better at it than somebody else and to care less in that sense.
I think Cro Cop said in a Pride fight when he lost by armbar to Nogueira, he was getting a lot of, Nogueira was getting a lot of bad things said to him about the Croatian television, and Cro Cop stepped up and he said, he could have broke my arm, and he didn't.
Yep.
And he said he put it on just enough. So, you do see those fighters.
And my attitude, because maybe I'm not comfortable with that kind of aggression and violence to begin with, I always look for... I like MMA because of the potential for things to get ugly, but I always, for myself, try to look for a way to win submissions, usually.
Okay.
Just get to a place where then we can shake heads, we all go home happy, and life is done, right? So in that sense, not a lot has changed, because my attitude was never one that was that intense about being aggressive and wanting to go for blood kind of thing.
Okay, so your podcast is called The Drunken Taoist, and your fighting style has been called The Drunken Taoist.
Right.
I was wondering if you could explain that fighting style, or maybe you just did a little bit.
Yeah, because I guess I am more... it's the same thing whether apply to schooling, whether apply to martial art, whether apply to anything. I'm not very good at staying, at being a good student, to go through the motion and learn how you're supposed to learn.
Okay.
I get bored. I keep thinking in other ways. And so as much as it's important to have a grounding in what it is that you want to learn, I always want to experiment in ways that may not be... So a lot of my game
have fun. You probably want to have fun too.
Is unorthodox.
Okay.
Is very weird in everything I do.
Okay.
Is very mine, in both the good and bad ways, right? I'm lacking certain things that somebody should have by going through the basics and everything. And I have other things that other people do not, because they are weird, unorthodox, and they have never been taught to do that, and so it's not part of the way they have been molded.
Okay.
So my way, the Drunken Taoist thing is, somebody was saying now in Kung Fu movies, sometimes you see this figure of the old drunken guy who looks like crap, who looks like what else he's gonna do,
Jackie
and then,
Chan movies always had that guy, right?
Show up, and there's the tough muscular challenger who gets dropped and nobody knows what happened, and he's like, how could this guy beat this one? That doesn't make sense. And a lot of my game is more strategy based. So when most of the time when I fought people, they look way worse than they do when they fought somebody else. And it doesn't look like I'm doing much, but it's because my game is all about taking them away from where they are strong and bringing them to a place where they are not so strong.
Okay.
So it's really more strategy based than anything.
Okay.
You know, I'm not the strongest guy in the world. I'm not the fastest guy in the world. I'm not, you know, there are a lot of things that I badly lack.
Okay.
And because of that, like I remember one time we did a pretty hard sparring session with this guy in boxing. Boxing is not my main thing, right? This guy is 6 inches taller than me, 25, 30 pounds heavier at least. He's a better boxer, he's faster, he's younger, and he doesn't like me.
That's a long afternoon.
So I'm screwed, right?
Yeah, I've been there.
And what I was thinking was, I'm not going to beat him in a clean boxing match. I'm not going to beat him in a lot of ways. So what can I do? You know, because the guy was already so much taller than me, I started crouching even more. So he would have to punch at this really awkward angle, going way downward, more than he was used to. I would throw this, I'm not going to throw this nice jab because he has seen a million jabs thrown by people who are faster and better than me. I'm going to throw this, you know, I'm going to almost shoot in on the guy like I'm wrestling and come with these weird looping punches coming at strange angles. So the guy doesn't know what the hell is going on. You know, you're too low, you're coming in these weird ways. I end up wrestling him essentially. I end up like in his face, pinning his gloves, hitting him with the other hand, arm dragging him, stepping on his feet, doing the stuff that's all either borderline legal and illegal, like exactly. It's like nobody's gonna call you on it unless you're doing something horrendously bad, but it's clearly at the edge. And I basically wrestled him more than I fought him, and he would find him, he didn't know what the fuck happened, right? I mean, if we fight 5 more times, he would beat me every time because he figures it out and he switches strategy. Right. But for that one time, that was the only thing I could do. If I played normal boxing, I get killed because the guy is better than me, has more experience, and is faster and stronger. Okay. So there's no incentive for me to play normal, right? Okay.
And is that why leg locks go into your strategy as well?
Yeah, totally.
For people that don't have a jiu-jitsu background, leg locks are these, it's not something that was traditionally taught by a lot of the Gracie clans, but they're basically a way of attacking people's knees, ankles, and feet. And it's not, a lot of the classic training just ignore the feet. And so, but if you're good at it, then you can be really dangerous because most people don't train this area when it comes to defense. And it's such a sensitive area. I mean, geez, your knee can be popped quickly.
Very much. And I mean, the thing is, I'm never going to beat a guy who's better than me with a choke or with an armbar or something, right? Because how many times they have been choked or armbarred, they know how to defend it. If they are better than you, you're not going to get them, you know? The only way that I'll ever beat somebody who's better than me is by doing stuff that they are not used to doing. And so in the grappling game, something like leg locks, few people train them, few people spend enough time with leg locks. Right. So it's one of those big holes that is very easy to become better than everybody else at leg locks because so few people train in it. Yeah. And so I feel that becomes my equalizer, right? Okay. You know, there are plenty of guys that are the same or better than me, and the only way I can change the game a little so I don't get totally slaughtered is by going for leg locks constantly.
Yeah, you're pretty fluid with those things. So Daniele just gave me a DVD with those, and I was watching your YouTube stuff. And I was actually in Rio de Janeiro in 2005 training the Brazilian top team, and a guy who no one had heard of named Husimar Pajares was in the corner, and I had never seen this guy before, and he must have slapped on, I kid you not, like 40 leg locks in a row on his sparring partner. And it was just like one every 15 seconds, 10 seconds. And I'd never seen some of them. And he was laughing the whole time while he was doing it. Yeah. And I was just like, my God. And it was amazing
changes
to
the
watch.
Game. And it changes how people think too. Because like I was rolling with a guy maybe 6 months ago. And you know when you don't know somebody and you start rolling and you feel their energy the first few minutes. And I realize he's a rough customer. He's either the same level or better than I am. I tried passing his guard. He was really good at keeping guard. And I was like, okay, plan B. So the second he opened his guard, I fell into a leg lock, tapped him out. Okay. A minute later, I did the same thing. A minute later, I did the same thing. A minute later, I did the same thing. 4 leg locks in a row, the guy's entire jiu-jitsu game had gone out the window. All he could think about was his feet. The rest of his game has suddenly declined in skill dramatically. And then I could pass his guard.
Okay.
I would have never been able to before.
Right.
You know, and so it's like throwing these little curves that make people throw them off their strength. I like it.
Do you use that in other aspects of your life?
Yeah, I guess is unlike martial arts, you know, in other aspects of my life, ideally, I try to be in a place where they walk away happy and I walk away happy.
Right, okay.
So the way to do that is I need to figure out their motivations, where they are coming from, what they need. And so in some cases I saw earlier you had the Robert Greene book.
Yeah,
and
the 50th Law.
I do kind of like the Robert Greene game with different motivations, you know.
Okay.
I'm totally for manipulating reality, which includes manipulating sounds like a bad word, but manipulating the situation, except that when I manipulate the situation, I tend to do it in a way that I want the other person to walk away happy too.
Okay.
Because otherwise, I don't know, creates bad vibes, it gets back to you, you get it's like, so unlike the Robert Greene, you know, use them all and get what you want and screw whatever they think. I don't know, either I'm a softie or I'm a wimp or something, but I have this more, I do want to play a little bit in a way, because I mean, sometimes somebody may be in a conversation, somebody may have certain areas that if you touch them, you're gonna get in a fight, no matter how right you are, or maybe they should be thinking about that thing that they are doing. If you handle it in a certain way, bad results will come.
Right.
You may have said the right stuff, they are not ready for it.
Right.
So my game becomes, okay, how do I get around it? How do I find a way to lower their defenses, not to screw them over, but to lower their defenses so that we can both have a good day.
Right, okay.
And so yeah, that kind of game to me applies to interpersonal relationships even more.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think Nelson Mandela once said, you can defeat your enemy without dishonoring him.
Yeah.
And I always felt that way with martial arts. It's like you can beat the guy and then, you know, walk out with arm in arm, you know, and just, you know, and I agree, you can win an argument and not humiliate someone.
Yeah.
You know, you can, so there is a way to do it.
Like, to me, the best is when you win the argument and the other person doesn't even feel that you won the argument. You know, it's like they just suddenly feel happy and everything worked out.
Right.
It's like, perfect.
Yeah, that's good.
Everybody got what they want. You know, doesn't always work, but it's a good goal.
It's a good goal. So you just cranked out 2 books pretty fast. What motivates you to write a book? And yeah,
So I'm a masochist bastard. I don't know. I mean, not that fast, because creating a religion I've been working on for a really long time.
okay,
Taking notes for a long time.
Okay.
Then I wrote it over a couple of years.
okay,
I had it more or less ready. When I pitched it, they were like,
you pitch it to the publisher that's
Yeah.
published your last book. You kind of have a
well,
relationship with
no,
the
that's the
publisher?
thing. Is
Okay.
I pitched it to this information, and I hadn't published anything with them.
Okay.
And they were like, a little scared by what you're saying. You know, we like your writing, we like your book, we like your first book and everything on the warrior's path,
Right.
but it's a thick book about religions. We're not, maybe it sells, maybe it doesn't. We're not so sure.
Yeah.
Why don't you, we have this series called 50 Things You're Not Supposed to Know About. We want to do one on religion. Why don't you do one of those that we feel safer about, at least breaking even with something like that?
Okay.
If that goes okay, then we do the other one.
Okay.
So the 50 Things was not a book that I was planning to write.
Okay.
It was something that I was told, you know, you want it or not. And, you know, initially I was like, screw you know, I'm giving you my heart and soul of everything I wanted to put in about religions in this book, and you're asking, screw that. But then, of course, they mentioned the magic word advance, as in advance check. I was like, I'd be delighted to write your book. Please, when do I start?
Yeah, those don't get passed out a lot, do they?
Yeah, and you know, it wasn't a lot, but it was still more than I had. So, and
So you did 50 ways first, 50 things
yeah,
first.
so I
Okay.
did that one. I mean, I'd already written Create Your Own Religion for the most part,
Okay.
but I did 50 Things. That was published faster, and I was actually happy to write. It was fun to do it. It was a fun project.
Everyone says good things about that book because they can grab it and kind of get a quick little
Yeah.
anecdote or kind of a story that sticks in their mind.
That's what it is, you know. It's
Okay.
a fun book in the sense that is funny, light-hearted, teach you something about the history of religions, but in a fun way. But it's not, in a sense, as much as I like it, it's not like my heart is spilled on the page. You know what I mean? I'm of the school of thought for writing that I love. There's this Nietzsche quote that Nietzsche wrote, of everything that's written, I only love what a man has written with his blood.
Okay.
And I dig it because it's like, I don't want to be fucking entertained. I want passion. I want intensity. I want your heart and soul on the page. Otherwise, you're wasting my time.
Isn't that what Hemingway did as well?
Right.
He always wanted like real. I wanted,
Yeah, it has to
honest.
Get me in the guts, right?
Right.
And so 50 Things clearly wasn't that.
Okay.
It was something that was for fun. I mean, when I reread it, I'm like, oh, fuck, I had a really good time writing this. This was a good, so I'm happy with it. It's not something that I'm unhappy with,
Right.
but it's different from the book that you're dying to write.
Okay.
It's a different feel to it.
Yeah, okay.
And Create Your Own Religion for me was sort of the sum of everything that I thought philosophically about life in a way, put it in a package.
Okay.
So I was more invested in it.
What's a win for you for like this latest book? Like what for you is like a metric of success? It doesn't have to be even a quantifiable metric.
Right. Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard one to figure out because it's on one end everybody wants the big numbers.
Yeah.
You want to see
Sell
a ton of people have sold, not only for the money but also because it means that a lot of people it had hit and resonated with a lot of people.
Yeah.
At the same time, how much is enough? How many people do you need to reach before you can pat yourself on the back and say that was a success? If you reach a small number but they go nuts and it changes their life in a good way, they really go nuts for it, they love it, it does something, is that success or not? It's like, so that's a tricky one. I struggle with that a lot because I get a lot of messages on a regular basis, and I try to always reply to my messages. I don't know if I'll always be able to. But
I hear you. You say that on the podcast, and I'm like, I know how hard that is to do sometimes. So
I'm big on it because people take time to write you.
Yeah.
I feel if it's all possible to write back, I should, because it's a big thing to do not to.
Yeah.
So I take that, and I take those messages seriously. And when you get all the good feedback from somebody in the weirdest corner of the world who tells you their life story, tells you how what something you wrote hit them and helped them, it's humbling, really. It makes you feel like, wow, really did what I wrote help you in that insanely bad situation? That really makes you feel good. So clearly success in that sense.
Okay.
And on the other level, you have this ego thing of like, I want more, I need to hit a bigger audience. And even if you hit that, probably that you're like, no, bigger,
then you want more.
Yeah.
It'll be great for a day, and you wake up the next day, how come it's not more?
Right, exactly. It's like money, right? It's like how much is enough? The numbers can keep going up.
And the marginal gain of elation it's much less, I think, going up than going down.
Right.
I don't know. It's just like, it's just how much more? Does it really make you that much happier?
Precise. On that note, a message to your listeners. Since you guys are figuring out that my fragile ego needs boosting, please download my podcast. I will look at the numbers, pat myself on the back, and sleep better at night. So.
Well, definitely check out the Drunken Taoist on iTunes. Taoist with a T, right? And I want to ask you about that because your podcast debuted very high on the is it the philosophy and religion section of iTunes, number one
for a while.
And I have London Real is something I track a lot of the times, and after we were on Rogan 6 months ago, our audio downloads just went through the ceiling, and it's something I watched for a while, and of course look where are our views, and then my ego would be based on the views, and then at one point I had to stop looking because at one point it got to a point like, why are you doing this?
I've done the same thing. I would check it every single day, and I realized I'm a fucking addict. Stop now. You're just being stupid. So for the last 2 months I haven't even taken a look.
And if say it's 50,000 or 70,000 people listening to your podcast, like, do you know those 20,000 people?
Exactly.
Do they exist?
Yeah.
Did it even happen?
Right.
It's this number that iTunes will never even tell you who these people are. You'll just see it by the number of pings on your server, and then it's like it gets to be really weird. And so it gets to a point where I find.
Sir.
Got it. See, we are in the same room. um, but sometimes people think I'm Skyping all the time because of the split screen. But yeah, that's why I wanted to know if you just stopped looking. Cause
I just did, actually. It's
Okay.
funny that you bring it up because I was very addicted to that.
Yeah, and then you'll start questioning while you're doing the podcast. Because if you're ultimately doing it for fan numbers, then you're ultimately not doing it for the right reason, I think.
And in that sense, exactly, because inevitably, especially at the beginning, you know, my numbers kind of immediately went at the top of iTunes, new and noteworthy, all of that kind of stuff. Cool. So you get a bunch of people also who are just checking it out, right? Who might not stick around. So when inevitably you have the dump afterwards where the numbers start going down a little bit, you get all bummed out. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm getting all these messages, and like 99% of messages are all super positive. Yeah. And so you really start thinking, am I that much of an ego-driven freak that I need the number to feel good about myself? Or is the fact that some people are getting something out of it, isn't that the whole point? Yeah. You know, that you're having fun doing it, and that and in that sense, some people, that's why, you know, you talk to people who have their own little podcast that 100 of their friends listen to. Is that a success? I mean, hell, if 100 of their friends get something good out of it, hell, if 10 of their friends get something good out of it, and the other 90 listen for fun, is that a bad thing? I mean, obviously it's not a commercial success. Right. But hey, all the power to you, you know? Yeah, it puts everything in perspective. Yeah. Because it's like, well, what realistically is this podcast going to do? I mean, do you want to reach those certain people in a big way? I mean, because, you know, you're not going to be Jay Leno. So I'd like to become king of Hawaii. That would be, if my podcast lead to the fact that the population of Hawaii say, please come rule over us, I would be very pleased with that. The important thing about goals is to have something quantifiable. Yeah, that's my ultimate goal. You should have a date on that as well, just to make it a Tim Ferriss goal. Shit, okay. Maybe by 2015. Okay. No, maybe 2030. Yeah. Rush. Keep it. I mean, the king of Hawaii, there hasn't been a king there for 100 years. I know. Malaho Moleha or something. I would dig that job. Okay. Some of the business cards you can make. So it's king of Hawaii. How cool is that? So, I mean, tell me about the podcast. Your 13th episode, I think. I was listening to the author you just had on recently. It's really good. I really like your episodes. You know, some great talks with Duncan on there, and some, I don't know, really deep stuff. How are you finding the podcast? Did you have to have your arm twisted to do it? Is it, you ever think about packing it in? I mean, yeah, initially because I didn't know all the technology surrounding hell, I mean, to be honest, when I first went, my very first podcast I've ever done as a guest was Rogan's. Right, okay. And so I find myself in like one of the biggest podcasts in the world, knowing jack shit about the whole world, where it's like, oh yeah, podcast, you know, I kind of heard about it. It's like, sad, really. And then after being on enough as a guest and getting the feedback, hey, start your own, I wanted to. I just didn't have the physical time to invest into learning everything that goes into the technological part of it, you know, recording, editing, putting on iTunes, do the whole. So I asked on Facebook, Twitter, you know, anybody, thank you guys for telling me this, but anybody want to help with it? Because I can't do it, you know, if it's about me starting from scratch, do everything on my own, I can't. Right. Not that I don't want to, I don't have the time and the energy. And so when I had support and Rich and Devon stepping up and helping me with some of these things, and a few other people help with some aspects of it, that made it real, you know, that made it, okay, I can show up, worry about content, worry about guests and stuff I want to talk about, and worry about the content of it, and not having to worry about the technical component. And at those conditions I could do it. Okay. You know, and so I enjoy that a lot. Okay. You know, it's sometimes challenging when you have the regular deadline and, you know, suddenly life happens and you have a million other things to do, but, you know, you make the commitment, you should stick to the deadline. You know, in my case, it's not even as hard as what you have, because I only do 2 episodes a month. Right. One with a guest and one without, just where we go on random rants. Okay. So it's not even that bad, and still sometimes you're like, oh damn, it's coming up, we need to get down and record. But no, it's fun, I like it a lot, and really the listeners' feedback is the main thing. Okay. I'm having fun recording them and all, but when you get the feedback and people telling you the way in which it's helping you, then it gives you motivation. When you feel like, I don't want to do this, I'm tired, oh fuck, I have to do that podcast again, you know, but you think about how it's affecting people, then like, stop whining, just get on with it and do what you need to do, because there are other people who, it sounds too much to say depend on you, maybe that's too much, clearly, but at the same time, there are people who, if nothing else for entertainment, are counting on it, and they would be happy if you do it, so get off your ass and do it.
Right. And that's different feedback than you get from your books?
Similar, just more.
More, okay.
There's a lot more messages, even though when you look at the numbers, it's not really, books. My first book has sold pretty well, but I think because maybe the people who listen to podcasts are more technologically driven anyway, so they are more willing to just shoot you a message in a heartbeat. People who read, even though I did put my email in there and stuff, you get less messages from that.
Yeah, plus with your podcast, you're in their head every 2 weeks,
right.
and I think it's
Exactly.
just to get reminded, and they're usually online, that kind of thing. One of my favorite episodes was with Sharon Lee.
Oh yeah, Sharon is awesome.
And it was really good, and I liked her honesty, because growing up with Sharon Lee, it is probably no cakewalk, and she talked a little about that, during the show. But you were involved in the movie I Am Bruce Lee, which she produced and she was in as well.
She's produced and she was in it.
How did you get involved in that project?
I'll make the story quick. It's funny.
Who did you have to pay or kill to get involved? Okay.
That's actually close.
Okay.
I was in Wales, and
how could the story start?
I know. And while I was there, I found out, they told me, there's this guy you should work with for your PhD. He writes about media and martial arts, this Paul Bowman, check him out. And I'm like, okay. So I looked him up in my hotel room before going back to the university the next day. Not only do I find out that he wrote about martial arts and about Bruce Lee, but I find excerpts of his book, and a couple of chapters in his book is just trashing stuff that I written.
Okay.
And I'm like, I didn't know that. That's
specific
interesting.
stuff that you had written?
In On the Warrior's Path,
and
when I was
mention you
talking
by name.
about, absolutely.
Okay.
So 2 chapters of his book, or maybe 1, I can't remember, but they're basically about my stuff.
Okay.
Like, whoa, okay, that's weird.
That's interesting.
And he's really getting into it. Here, some things are really pissing him off. So the next day, but he seemed like, I see his speak, I see some of the stuff, he seemed like a nice guy. So I'm like, okay, I won't take it personal. So I see that he has his office hours the next day. So I'll show up to his office hours, and he's like, look at me kind of like, who the hell are you? Because, I'm not one of his students. And I'm like, hello, Daniele Bolelli. And I see, again, this is my version of the story, probably completely different on the other end, but in my mafia imagination, I'm picturing him start sweating bullets and thinking like, oh shit, what the hell is he doing in Wales? This guy just came to kill me because
Did you wear a suit?
So I was very polite, He's like, hey, by imagination, I'm running the conversation from The Godfather 2 when the guy's coming in to tell De Niro about, that old lady that I kicked out from the house. I'm sorry, I'll bring the rent less. Probably not at all what happened, but again, who cares? It's by imagination. So. In any case, bottom line, we chat a little, we hit it off. He was a really nice guy. And because he had written a monograph about Bruce Lee, when they were doing I Am Bruce Lee, they wanted somebody who had a little more of a philosophical take on it. So they asked Paul. When they asked him, they said, is there anybody else? Because we were nowhere heavy on the MMA section, on the personalities. We want somebody else with a philosophical take on it. Anybody you can think of. Paul, probably because they didn't want me to come back and make him an offer he couldn't refuse, decided he recommended me. And so I got this call saying, tomorrow morning, can you record in LA in this place? I'm like, it happens to work, so sure. So I showed up, and that's what happened. And it was fun. I had a good time. The director of I Am Bruce Lee, Pete McCormick, he's a guy that we really hit it off right away. Brilliant, really smart, nice human being. And then we started cooperating on a project. And right now, as we speak, in fact, I have every other finger crossed, because there's a project we're working on for a TV series that's been pitched as we speak. So I'm on edge. But the whole thing was awesome. I got to meet Shannon through the documentary. Right. I got to meet Pete McCormick. Adam Scorgi was one of my guests on the podcast. Adam, he produced this documentary called The Union. It's about the marijuana industry in Canada. He was on I Am Bruce Lee, so I got to meet him in that way. So it was a great experience. It was a lot of fun. And then I felt that going to because they released it in theaters before they put it on DVD.
Right.
So going to the theater and see myself pop up on the screen, I felt it was the first step to becoming King of Hawaii. So
King of Hawaii. Look out, Hawaiians.
Yeah, exactly. So I was
see George
I was
Clooney's
pleased
gonna
with
move.
that. Yeah.
And how much time were you on screen for on that movie?
Like, not that much. It's like, I think I said beforehand, it's like any second over 30 seconds that I'm in there, I'll take a shot or something.
Okay.
And I would have died probably had I done it, because it was like 52 seconds or
Okay.
something. So 22
cool.
shots in a row would have killed me. But, it's one of those things, it's funny, they interview you for 2 hours and then you get a tiny bit on screen.
Yeah.
That's the way business is done, right?
Yeah, and sometimes you don't get any.
Yeah,
Right?
but it was funny too, because I remember we talk and talk and talk, and I remember at one point saying, I compare Bruce Lee to a middle finger raised toward authority,
Right.
and I saw the light in Pete McCormick's eye going off, or like, say that one line again, he really wanted to use it, so I'm like, okay, I know where we're going with it.
And that's what he is.
Yeah.
Which makes me ask you about your picture that's on your website.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's a standard picture of you. And if you haven't seen this, well, go to danielebolelli.com.
Yeah.
You can check it out. But it's you in an Oxford shirt with a tie, with a black eye, holding some books, which are probably philosophy
Right.
related. And you've got a UFC glove on, and you got the middle finger up. And I've seen you with other middle fingers holding your daughter with the middle
Yep.
finger up. What's the middle finger all about?
Middle finger is, especially the one with my daughter, that was when everything was going to crap. It was
Okay.
like maybe 2 months after my wife had died.
Okay.
And so somebody was taking a pic of me, and I realized, I'm standing there in this leather jacket, holding my baby in a sweet way with one arm, tiny baby cuddled up against me, and on the other hand, I'm like, I have this middle finger to the universe, because ultimately that's how I felt, right? I felt like the universe is trying to crush me, and every fucking thing that could go wrong is going wrong. So there was a side of me that was the sort of sweet, sensitive, take care of my little daughter, and the other side that was like, you know what, fuck you all. I'm gonna have a good time until I drop dead, no matter what you throw my way. And so the middle finger part was, I think I actually wrote it as a tweet once, and it started becoming one of the things that I use all over. There's this one line that I wrote that was answering hopelessness with a defiant smile and raised middle finger.
Right.
And that's exactly what that was about. It's like, horrendous things happen, I'm gonna find a way to have fun anyway, motherfucker.
Okay.
And so that's where the middle finger with a smile comes in. It's not an angry middle finger. It's just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what you throw my way. I'm gonna find one way. Because otherwise you shoot yourself, which I understand. If it gets to be too much and you get crushed, I understand people who say I can't. Wait, I get it. I'm not saying. But as long as I can, that's where the middle finger.
And the middle finger, I think it's so poignant that it goes to hopelessness, because it's not even directed at anyone in particular.
It's not personal.
It's not even directed at someone who's fucked with you. It's just the concept of hopelessness that you are rejecting.
Yeah. Like, I'm not gonna be a victim.
Right. Have you ever suffered from like a bit of nihilism?
I mean, you do get. There are a lot of times in life when you feel that there's no meaning in anything. All this shit, there's no point, there's no logic, there certainly is no morality that rewarding good people, punishing the bad. There's none of that shit.
And when you had a bunch of tragedies back to back to back, it's...
I mean, you look at it, they're like, what's the justice? There is no justice, and that I accept. But beside there's no justice is, what's the point?
Yeah.
Is there any meaning?
Yeah.
And in that sense, obviously I don't know the answer. Nobody else does either. But it's like, well, there may not be meaning. I'm still alive here and now. Diapers need to be changed. My daughters need to smile.
Yeah.
So there's meaning right now.
Yeah.
That's where meaning is.
Yeah.
Is there any deeper meaning? I don't know. And ultimately I don't care. Because it's nothing I can control anyway. The only thing I care about is this second.
Right. You think without your daughter that would be tough to do sometimes?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would be harder.
Okay.
I don't think it would be impossible, but definitely would be harder.
Okay. I had some bouts of nihilism before I started London Real, and I'd left finance in London, and I was just like not working, not knowing what to do, and I really got to this nihilistic, like, what is the point in any of this? And I forget how far down I was in that track. I wasn't suicidal or anything, but I was really to this really bleak point of like, what are we doing this for? But it's funny now when I'm meeting like really cool people every week and having these cool conversations, and I'll be honest, it's a human connection that I get to have with these people, and it's all kind of gone away, you know, and that and dealing with some young people. I've got like a 9-year-old stepdaughter, and just like they show you to just shut up about your nihilism, because like, yeah, this is important. This is more important than you. This is immediate and the next generation, and I don't know, for some reason it seems to wash all of that out for me.
Big time. I think is one of the few things that can defeat those feelings and even fear, going back to the fear element.
Right.
You know, I mean, you hear that topic of like love being the only thing that's stronger, and in some way, as rhetorical as that may sound, is actually true, because there are times where you can do things for somebody else that you would never find the strength to do for yourself.
Right.
And that was actually my first MMA match. That's exactly what happened. When I was going through my whole fear, panic, terror, that before fight, I was talking with my wife. She was in US, I was in Italy, and we were on the phone, and she knew where I was mentally. And one thing that she said was like, when you go for the fight, imagine that that guy is trying to hurt me. And it was weird, in 1 second, your whole mindset switch. You're there like, fuck, I don't want to fight, this guy's gonna pummel me. And all of a sudden you're like, I can't wait to get in the cage with you, motherfucker, I'm going to kill you. You know? And it's like, not literally, you know, you keep perspective and you're like, he's still a probably good guy, you don't really, but the mentality switches. And it's like, it's not that I didn't want to be strong for myself, but I couldn't find a way.
Okay.
For somebody else, in 1 second it switches a lot.
Strange how that works.
Weird,
Yeah,
really weird.
It is weird. It's funny, actually Ronda Rousey says that about her sister. She's really close with her younger sister, and that's how what she projects. This person's trying to hurt my younger sister, and then she just flips.
Yep, big time.
It's a nice way of compartmentalizing it too, really. Because you can kind of turn it off after, maybe.
And even then, you know, it didn't get to make me crazy. Like, I remember doing the first fight, the guy was pretty good striker and decent jiu-jitsu, but I had no wrestling. So the second he threw the first kick, I took him down, and then the rest of the match was kind of a boring, grinding match. I took top mount, and because he was defending submissions well, I went to ground and pound, which I never really do.
Okay.
But even when I watch the tape, I'm just like, oh my god, that's like the saddest attempt I grounded, because I clearly don't want to hurt the dude, so I'm hitting him enough to give the ref an idea this guy's not defending himself, but I'm clearly not trying to take his head off. And so it's kind of fun, because even though I was in this mindset of like, fuck, I'm determined, it still didn't get to a point where I really believe it and I'm bloodthirsty. It was still like, man, I'm glad the ref stopped it, because, you know, I wrapped the guy's arm around his neck, so he really is not going anywhere. It's pretty clear. But the intent to pummel it the way you should have if you're a pro MMA guy wasn't there.
Guess that's your personality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you still roll on a regular basis?
You know, the last 2-3 years have been challenging. You know, I roll, but regular is a big word, because, you know, I do for a while and then something happened and my daughter is home sick, I have to be home for 2 weeks and I can't really take any other time, or, you know, all this. So the last 2 to 3, I'm wishing to get back to a place in my life where things are stable enough that I can do that on a more regular basis. I'm still doing it, but nowhere near the way, you know, the way I trained from the time I was maybe 20 to 35. I was a monk, right? I always put in my time. The last few years, 2 to 3, I would say, ish. It's sketchy. Trying to, working on it. I mean, I just moved I finally now have a house, everything is stable and stuff, so that should help, that should be a first step.
Do you think part of it's an age and maturity thing, that it might not be what it used to be so important for you to get that training in every week?
I don't know, because when I do go,
Yeah.
I remember when I've gone maybe a month ago, after I hadn't trained for like 2 or 3 months, I went in halfway through. I mean, I could feel I had this smile going from 1 year to another. I was just like, I forgot how good this feels. You know,
that's
fun.
True. Having a good role with the right crowd is that's pretty good. It's when I see Elio Gracie doing it in the 80s, I'm like, I want to be that guy. But I don't know, things get in the way sometimes.
big time.
Unfortunately.
No.
I was wondering if you could tell me about your thoughts on Bruce Lee. I mean, it's like, you look at him and he's been built up so much to kind of this mythical figure that can probably never do no wrong, a Superman, a wise man about everything, the originator of MMA.
Right.
And do you think that's overdone sometimes?
I mean, anybody, right? Everybody's human and nobody is that 24/7.
Right.
I think the guy was brilliant.
Yeah.
I think he was philosophically brilliant, definitely ahead of his time martial art-wise.
Pushing himself in many ways
Yeah.
at the time.
At the same time pushing himself clearly too much. Because,
Yeah,
you know,
'cause he was hurting
clearly
himself, right?
burning the candle from too many ends,
Okay.
and something got to give at some point. So
Right.
there's something about his willpower and determination that may be more than it's healthy for a person to have.
Okay.
But at the same time, that's what made him Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
You know, and no, I love the guy. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I wouldn't go, you know, all the people who start turning it into this myth of like, he would beat anybody in the world. It's like, how the fuck do you know? You know, probably not. You know, I'm
Yeah.
sure he was good, and I'm sure there were people who could have beaten him then and could definitely beat him now. So, you know,
I look
take
at
it. But that doesn't matter to me.
Yeah,
you know, it's like,
that isn't very. It's not really relevant, is it?
No.
Whether Ben Henderson could beat him now, or
Who
Yeah,
cares?
who cares? I just love how little things like him pushing himself. He closed a bunch of his martial arts schools down, didn't he? Because he thought they weren't relevant anymore.
Right.
I mean,
and also, I mean, he was doing other stuff, so you really didn't have the time and energy to spend in there. And so,
Right.
what's the point of keeping it open if you're not there physically?
okay.
And you know, he was into movies and doing all the other stuff. But no, I like Bruce Lee. He's if again you can get something of film and you really can get a sense of a person through film, which we left open earlier with Matthew's question.
Right.
If you can, then whatever I get from Bruce Lee on the screen, there's something that I dig a lot.
Yeah, there's something like when you watch Enter the Dragon. There's just something about him that comes through that I don't think you can fake.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something. Something pure.
No, definitely. It's like, it seems like a weird question. That's something I brought up with Shannon during our conversation. Is like, how is it that some people seem to be more real than others? What does that even mean? You know, and yet you feel it.
Yeah.
You know, so there
Across
is something.
all cultures.
Yeah,
I mean, Bas Rutten felt it in Holland, and this person felt it here, and you know.
And some people feel like there's something there when you're in their presence that hit something in people. And I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, Bruce Lee had it.
Yeah, and probably dying young didn't hurt that.
Yeah.
Because we got that snapshot of
Absolutely.
them, as opposed to
At your best,
At your best,
without the inevitable ups and downs that people have in life, with the contradictions and all of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
What's next for you in the next 5 and 10 years? I mean, it's interesting because you're a philosopher.
Right.
So I'm like, what's success for you in 10 years might be a different.
King of Hawaii!
You know, you really got this Hawaii thing that I'm a little worried about.
Hawaii and
Have you been to Hawaii? Or
yeah, actually, I mean, it's fun.
Yeah, okay.
No, but
Or
it
it's just
sounds
an
good.
obsession?
You know, yeah, it's totally just because it sounds good.
It does sound good.
Yeah, like King of Nebraska doesn't have that ring, you know. So beside my royal aspirations, I would say I'm trying to. I want to write. There's several books I have in mind. I literally have, because I'm a sociopath, I have maybe 50 pages worth of notes of 10 different books. I kid you not.
Okay.
So there's a ton of stuff that I badly want to write. A lot of it is fiction.
Oh wow. Okay. Good.
I've done non-fiction so far, but a lot of the stuff I want to do is mainly historical fiction.
Okay.
I would have a blast doing that.
I love historical fiction. I've read a couple great ones. Some people don't respect historical fiction, though, right? There's a great one on Hannibal, where it's like in first person as he goes through the Alps, and
I want to read that. That sounds awesome already.
It's a great way to read it. But some people are like, "That's not history. That's not fiction."
History is a joke anyway, because nobody really knows what the fuck happened, and you know, there's this trend among historians of being purely objective, and the reality is that if you really want to be purely objective, we don't know anything about 99% of human history. You know, so it's like, shut the fuck up already, lighten up a little. Yes, you want to be scientifically based, but also history is an art to some degree, because you are filling in the blanks in ways that you don't know.
Yeah, I can't stand the History Channel when they bring out an expert. It's usually a professor, no offense.
No, I hate them.
And they're telling you what happened there in Hannibal. So then Hannibal was really frustrated with the mountains and the Alps. I was like, Really? Do you know that?
Yeah, right. No,
It kills me.
And I'm fine with it if it's a knowledge, you know. It's
Right.
like you acknowledge the fact that there's an element of art involved because you weren't there, you don't know. And in that sense, then if it's part art, then historical fiction is fun. You know, if it's well done, it's awesome. What's wrong with that?
I think it can really, bring home someone.
That's why people love historical fiction movies, hate history courses with a passion. Because it's so damn dry and boring.
Dry, yeah.
And who wants, doesn't really matter, you know. Yeah, you're accurate, clap, 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 good job, but it doesn't relate to life, so what, you know.
I guess unless you can get the students to get in the head of your protagonist or something, and then they can be like, oh yeah, okay, now I get it. I guess that's why movies are successful.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Personalize that. So you got some fiction coming, which is, as an author, it's tough to do, to cross over.
And even that, I mean, it's tough, it is tough. And even that, I think I have something before that in mind, because there's one thing that I actually started writing last summer. I stopped after that because I had other things going on, but there's something more personal, which I wouldn't call it an autobiography because it clearly isn't, but it is about the stuff we were talking, dealing with grief, loss, the mess of it all, and because people seem to, you know, when I'm talking more philosophy, people dig it to a point. When I'm talking on a personal level, people seem to respond a lot more.
Okay.
So I'm like, hey, if it resound with, if it can help somebody else, good. So I'm thinking more of doing something along those lines, and then going into fiction territory.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, that's a success. I think that's why your podcast has been a success, because you do bring a personal element to it.
That's life, right? Yeah. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, and since you have a kind of a diverse background, I think people want to hear it from you. So,
but yeah, so there's a lot I want to write. I'm thinking like this thing with Pete McCormick, going the TV route.
Okay. Look at you. You're in LA and you're going to have a TV series potentially.
That would be fun.
Okay.
And really, because also that would bring audience to the things I'm already doing that can only reach so many.
Right.
With something like TV, you reach a lot more.
It's bigger.
Fun, you know.
Which moves me to my next couple questions, and then we'll be finished. LA. I'm actually from Southern California. I live in London. You grew up in Milan. Now you live in LA. What do you love about LA, and what, if anything, do you hate about LA?
When I first moved to LA, my romantic fantasies quickly disappeared, and I started hating it really fast.
Okay.
And for the first 2 years, I had a really hard time because Italy for me wasn't friendly enough. There wasn't enough community.
Okay.
And here there's like 1/10 of what you have in Italy. So it's like, yeah, good job, Daniele. You moved to the right place for if that's what you're craving, right?
Okay.
So I crave like almost a tribal structure, right?
Really?
I crave that, and you know, LA is anything but. You know, it's very isolated.
Is that because of the geographics, or because of the nature
the geographic
of business?
Nature of business, culture? You know, people in US are used
Transient
to
city?
picking up and yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I had a hard time with that, and eventually I gave up on this notion of you know, you got to choose, you know, not every place will have everything, so LA is great to get stuff done. Beside the awesome weather, you get to, it's so much easier to get stuff done, not only for practical purposes, but also for the culture, encourages innovation much more so. One of the things I hate about Europe is that, not to generalize, but definitely about Italy, I can speak for that, is a dead culture. Everything is about the past.
Yeah.
Any new idea, immediately you get people going, oh, I don't know about that, you know, all the reasons why it can't work. The US, there's a tendency to say yes to things, even to things you shouldn't say yes to, but that's exciting because there's more willingness to experiment.
Right.
So that's what I like about it.
Okay.
So
that is very real, because I've been to Italy and I've been to Europe, and I love going to Italy, but you know, you always get the same meal, and you always, you know, the island of Capri will always be the island of Capri, and there won't be any changes.
No.
That's the way it feels.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure things are changing.
It's like being in a museum or something.
Yeah,
it's just, it's fun if you retire there. It's fun if you don't have to work.
If you're a
it's
civil
fun
servant.
if, exactly. You want to just drink wine and chat with your friends by the bar, you know, that's all good, but for getting stuff done, you know, not so much. So that I like that about LA. There's more of a feeling of things happening, and ultimately I think right about when I was at the edge of deciding maybe I need to go back to Italy, but then even that didn't look that appealing because the reasons why I left were still there.
Right.
I ran into this woman, started a relationship, fell in love with her, and the reason why we do things, right? So I was like, LA is just great. I think I'm gonna live in LA. Even then, when the relationship ended, I was like, by then I gotten used to living in LA. I started appreciating the good sides of it and made my peace with the bad sides of it.
Okay.
And so after that, I was cool with living here.
Do you still crave that community, and have you found it anywhere?
I mean, I like it a lot. Is what I think in an ideal world it should be. Very hard to find.
We had a guest on our show called Charles Eisenstein, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he had the same thing. He went to some city, it was Chicago, and he's like, I'm going to form a community, I'm going to have some barbecues, I'm going to get these people over, and he ultimately concluded that there is no community unless you need each other. And unless you are, you have to rely on each other for something, like, I don't know, whether it's you make the wine and I make the cheese, or you have to look after my child and I have to, and he said, without a real need and dependence, there never will be a community.
Which sucks in some ways. I mean, I agree with him, but it's awful, because it's like, how about being a community because you're a cool human being, regardless of what you do, or if we have something in common there, it's just, I enjoy your company. How about that, you know? Why is that such a strange concept?
I don't know, maybe we're finding that, via podcast somehow, or maybe you're finding this through people that you have on the show, I think maybe I am finding this, through certain guests I meet, I find that they kind of become part of my community.
Jiu-jitsu studio,
that's a real community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's based on trust, on pushing each other. Maybe that is a community because you need them.
Yeah, but it's almost weird. It's like you need an excuse to be a community. We have a common interest, then we are a community. Not because, there are a lot of people that I can think of that I really get along with them great. We don't have a lot in common about what we do,
right,
or the specific things we like, but it's like,
I don't know.
There's it was weird. I spent lots of time on some American Indian reservations where there's clearly all the negative statistics, the poverty, the alcoholism, all the nastiest crap on the planet.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there was a very beautiful sense of community in the middle of all the nastiness, which doesn't outdo that, doesn't negate all the nastiness, but there was something really cool about it. And so I was thinking, man, having sort of a tribal structure before being colonized and all the nasty shit came with it must have been a really powerful experience. Yeah,
super powerful. Well, maybe you should write a book about this in the future, because it's great to have that idea of a community, and I love a community, but I find that you can have a bunch of people over for a barbecue, but then you lose touch with them because you don't really need them to do something, and you like them. I had a great time talking with you, but then you don't talk to them for another year.
Right.
So, and I think we really crave it.
That's why it would be fun to have like places, even in a city where you live close.
Right.
If there was a way to make it happen, where sort of like-minded people that you dig with, you live in the same neighborhood, so it becomes this little, you have your private space, so it's not like you have that. If you want to mind your business, you lock the door and mind your business, but you have that option of just stepping outside and you run into your friends, and it's very easy, it's like, when I do something 5 minutes from now, rather than in LA, it's like, sure, let me drive for an hour and a half across, it's like, nothing's gonna happen.
I think we're all trying to get back to that community somehow, and I don't know if we're gonna find it. Maybe that's what we're trying to do with these podcasts, I don't even know.
Internet definitely helps bridge distances that way. People are always bitching about Facebook and Twitter is not the same as face-to-face. Of course it's not the same as face-to-face, but face-to-face is not happening anyway in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So at least it's better than nothing.
And podcasts more so, because just having your voice and hearing a conversation or seeing a conversation, that's super powerful.
Right.
So that helps a lot.
No.
Last question, I wanted to ask you about California and how you feel about, I just wondered how you feel about marijuana and psychedelics. I never ever got your opinion. I just wanted to, we talk about it sometimes on the show. We've talked about ayahuasca in the past, and I just wondered if they help you with your thinking, or if you found that they don't.
First time I smoked weed, I was 11, and I had a joint with my mom, so that was fun.
Okay.
Weed itself never done much to me. Okay. I see some people who smoke and they really trip out of their minds, and I'm like, really, it's the same thing I'm smoking? Because it's not really doing much to me. I mean, it relaxes me, it's pleasant, but nothing dramatic. So But yeah, it's weird how the same thing affects people so differently.
Yeah, that is strange.
I've seen people who really trip big on some weed, and I'm like,
Right.
if I take deep breaths, it's the same thing, you know. It really is not hitting me that hard. And
Okay.
I have though been hit hard enough. Like I remember once when I was a teenager, I made this tea with hashish, and I
Okay.
completely fucked up the dosage. So I took like 5 times the recommended amount, and
Okay.
I don't do well with edibles, so this was one of
Okay.
the things that nothing happens for 2 hours and you're like, oh, what a waste, and suddenly you're in a whole other universe where it takes you 20 minutes to go 10 feet.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that at all.
Okay.
I was like, this sucks. It lasted for 8 hours. I
Ah.
kept going, like waking up, being like, where am I? Who am I? Oh, it's me in this place. Lights out. Who am I? Where am I? For hours on end. I was like, yeah, this sucks. I don't think I'm made for serious psychedelics, because
Okay.
that would
Yeah, because it becomes very psychoactive when you eat it. I'm told. I
Yeah.
haven't done it.
I hate edibles. I really
Right.
don't
Okay.
like
And you own it for so long, right?
Yeah, and so that kind of scared me off because I was very into psychedelic culture from an intellectual standpoint. I read all of Timothy Leary. One of my first jobs was to translate Terence McKenna's book into Italian.
Wow, that's
so
cool.
that was
Okay.
kind of fun. So I dug it. I got a lot out of it. I was a little freaked out for a while at the time when I had the impulse to experiment with psychedelics more.
Okay.
So my experiences have all been like very mellow and mild. Like one time somebody, American Indian ceremony, somebody had made tea with peyote,
Okay.
super mild. You know, it wasn't enough of it to really hit you. So it was, again, a pleasant sensation. It was like shaking hand with the plant, but it wasn't really a full-on thing.
Okay.
I, you know, a couple of things, but nothing dramatic. And I've always had the sense, like now, I'm curious, you know, it would be fun to try some stuff, but I didn't have that same sense of need that I had when I was younger,
Okay.
when I really badly wanted to.
Okay.
So weed, totally fine, but again, to me, is next to nothing.
Right.
Stronger stuff, you know, it also depends on what you can get reliably. Like for example, I remember I met Albert Hofmann, the creator of LSD, a
Yeah.
couple of times,
Okay.
and one thing he said is that 90+% of what goes by LSD is not LSD.
Really? Okay.
And it's because he said that, again, according to him, who knows, but he said that his stuff is safe. It
Okay.
wouldn't mess you up, but there are some of the chemicals are so rare that it wouldn't support mass production the way it has.
Okay.
So he said a lot of the street stuff is sketchy because you don't know what you're getting.
Okay.
Mushrooms, same thing, you know, you really need to know somebody to make sure you're getting something good. So I'm not opposed to it,
Okay.
you know.
But it's not a part of your
No.
existence consciousness work.
I think my mind is so damn weird to start with
Okay.
that I think it doesn't need too much encouragement to go in very strange places.
Just so everyone knows, your partner was here earlier that produces your podcast, and he was comparing you to Walter White from Breaking Bad.
Right, yeah. And,
so-
yeah, I heard that a lot actually. I heard
Okay.
a bunch of people telling me, he's so Breaking Bad, it's just like your life. I'm like, what the fuck? Really?
It could be a compliment. At least you're not boring.
Yeah. I take that, but I would rather not be dying and dealing meth maybe. But
Thanks so much for your time today. Yeah, I'm so glad.
Thank you so much for
It's really
having me.
surreal that we were trading emails from London, and now I'm here at
Yeah.
your house. So thanks for the hospitality. I appreciate it. If people want to get pre-order your book or order your book on Amazon, or what's the best way to do that? Your website, Twitter.
Yeah, my website is danielebolelli.com. I don't know if you guys put episode notes up or something.
Yeah, I'll put
if
that
you
on the
can put-
YouTube and
yeah.
on the notes.
My Twitter is just at my first initial D,
T.
and then my last name Bolelli, Bolelli.
Okay, the 2 L's are second.
Yeah,
Okay.
1 L first, 2 L second.
Okay.
And then if you guys want to check out Drunken Taoist podcast,
Yeah.
you can go on iTunes. If you go even on my website, danielebolelli.com, there's a link to the
Okay.
podcast websites with all the archives and everything. And yes, you know, books are on all 3, the ones I've published, they're on Amazon.
Okay.
You get them on Amazon UK too. They are kind of all over. So yeah, please
Excellent,
make
good.
me feel better about myself.
Yeah, a little ego boost never
Yes.
hurt anyone. As long as you know that's what it is, it's okay. I really like your podcast. I've got maybe like 8 or 10 that I have on my phone, but yours is one. It's like you and Trussell and Rogan and Diaz are the guys that kind of my go-tos. So it's nice. Yeah, appreciate it. So that's it. If you're listening to us, whether you're listening to us on either episode, please subscribe to us on iTunes. This video of this episode will be up on the London Real YouTube channel, which is London Real TV. That's it. Thanks so much, and
Awesome.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Until then, it's about the journey, as we say.
Yep.
All right, take care.
Welcome to London.
So you don't have enemies in the UK government as much?
In MI6 I do, yes. You know, in the British Secret Service, the guy who recruited me, I've heard, really doesn't like me at all.
And he was friends of yours at Oxford,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
A lot of people have seen the latest James Bond movie.